I'll call the meeting to order. Starting out, is there any remote participation?
What's there in the room?
Yay. Disposition of the minutes. If everyone got a chance to review them, have any comments? Motion.
I move that minutes be accepted as presented.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, moving on to announcements and public comments. Yes.
I have an announcement, which is just congratulations to Anne Hemingway, who was reappointed to the JMRL Library Board by the City of Charlottesville until June 30th, 2030. And technically, Anne, this is your first term that is starting right now, because she was a mid-year appointment as she was provisionally filling a seat. So thanks to council for filling the seat, and thanks to Anne for agreeing to do this more.
Anyone else? Yeah, for sure.
We're over
Any public comment? Not seeing anybody.
Looks like just staff. But if anybody on the call would like to make public comment, please use the Zoom raise hand function now. No public comment.
Okay, moving on to continuing education.
Okay, we are very lucky today to have our two experts, Heather Pennick and Megan Smead, JMRL's Young Adult and Children's Services Manager. We're here, I think, within the past year to talk about how summer reading gets put together. And now they are here to share the results of this year's summer reading with the board. You guys can stand wherever you like.
Okay.
You won't be on camera. You'll just be talking to the board.
Okay. How about I'll stand over there?
Okay.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah. You're up first. I am. Okay. Hi. Thanks for having us. I'm Heather Pennick. I'm the Young Adult Services Manager. And I would like to officially thank Megan Smead for putting together all of this data. She is an expert at spreadsheets, working the numbers. So she put together this beautiful slideshow. So we're here to tell you about the summer reading program and give you some numbers and kind of tell you how it works for those of you who are new or haven't joined the Summer Reading Challenge. So basically, the Summer Reading Challenge is the bread and butter of library programming. We get a lot of extra participation in the summer because children are out of school, obviously, and families are looking for more things to do and ideally are spending more time reading. So the way that it works, it usually lasts, it's 10 weeks, and patrons register and then they log their reading time. And we, the metric we use for measuring how much people are reading is minutes. And last year we started a new thing, which was that when you register, you automatically get a prize, which is a tote bag. And so you can kind of see the design here. That was designed actually by a staff member at the Greene County Library, and it was really popular. It went along with the theme of this year's summer reading program, which was Unearth the Story. So it's kind of, there was a lot of like dinosaur, prehistoric tie-in things that all of the branches did to engage readers, which was a little bit more, well, I wouldn't say more kid-friendly, but last year it was Color Our World. So every year there's a different theme, and we participate in a CSLP thing that's like statewide. So we follow their theme, and they give us a lot of designs and things that we can use. So we also use an application called Beanstack, which is how people can register and log their minutes themselves. They also can come into any library branch and have a staff member sign up for them, and they can log their reading on paper. There had been some pushback, I think, when we moved to having a digital platform for doing summer reading, but as everything moves online, patrons are more and more excited about it, and they really like being able to log everything and keep track of it themselves. So I find that more patrons are comfortable using it and enjoy how it goes. So this is sort of what it looks like. This is what it looks like on your phone when you sign up for the reading challenge. And these are just this is the paper log, the outside where you could, the kids really like signing their name. And here's just some pictures. Here's a little girl getting her prize. Because how it works is you log your reading, and then once you reach some of your reading goals, you get prizes. There's 2 prize books that you can receive at 500 minutes and 1,000 minutes. And then you get extra grand prize entries, and each branch has a grand prize entry for every age group. So children, teens, and adults. And teens are middle school and high school. So it starts at age 11, teens, which is a little bit misleading, but we find that you kind of start to lose the teen interest once they reach middle school. So we kind of scoop them up from the children's department to say, hey, it's still cool to read, and get them excited about coming to the library. Yeah, I think. And every branch has a library kickoff, a library summer reading kickoff, which are really popular. I know a lot of families look forward to these every year. They're at the end of school, beginning of summer. We had the attendance, as you can see, was 3,200 for all of the summer reading kickoffs, and we put on a lot of extra programs over the summer using regional funds to pay for outside presenters, but staff themselves also put on a lot of extra programs during the summer. So as you can see, our attendance was almost 22,000 library programs over summer at all of the branches.
It was basically just June and July.
Yeah.
So it's like 2 months of programming.
Yeah.
Is that more than previous years? It seems like a lot.
I didn't pull program data from last year. Should have.
Yeah, we could
for
look at
programming.
That's a good question. Yeah, we can look at it. Because I know our teen numbers were up for programs even just at the central library this year. So, it fluctuates, but our numbers have been going up. Megan's going to talk about numbers and show comparison for branch and year in a couple slides. Okay, thank you. Oh yeah, so here's just more of what the Beanstack app looks like, how it reads, and then this is the paper log, and so the kids could read. I have a 12-year-old, and he really liked putting in he likes logging and writing himself because I could put the app on his device, but it's very nice for him to say, he listens to a lot of audiobooks, and it was really easy for him to go back and say, oh, I listened to 90 minutes, this week, so he would write that down. So that's how they log their reading, and they get a prize notification. They usually get an email if they've signed up for email saying, congratulations, you've won a prize, come to the library. And so they come to any library branch, even it doesn't have to be the same library branch where they registered. They can go to any branch. We were just talking to Camille, the bookmobile driver. Some patrons sign up on the bookmobile, but then they go, to various branches to receive their prizes, or vice versa. There's a lot of patrons who use multiple branches. So, yep, it can be fully analog. If people don't want to use the app, we will log the participation for them. Okay, this is the summer reading bingo for teens. In the past, we have had some challenges for patrons to complete as part of the summer reading challenge. And we found that sometimes it's a little bit more confusing, but sometimes some of the patrons wanted to have more challenges for the teens. We wanted to give them a little extra something fun to engage them. Teens are our smallest number of participants in the summer reading challenge. So anyway, they're a hard audience, tough audience. So any way that we can get them in, we try to do. And this was proposed by the young adult librarian at the Crozet Library at the request of their teen advisory board, and we talked about it at a committee meeting, and a couple other young adult staff members wanted to do it as well. So I said, well, if we're doing it for one, we're going to do it for all. So we designed this bingo challenge, which I don't know if you can read that. It has things like read a graphic novel or a comic book, show YA staff a meme about libraries. Borrow something from the library that's not a book. And the idea was to just engage teens, find a reason to get them in the library doing more, not just, logging things on their phone. And it was received well. They enjoyed it. It varied by branch. And so I think it was a good start. The feedback was generally positive. 13% of participants just an extra incentive. And it also gave them an eligibility to win extra prizes. So each branch had a special bingo prize for teens who completed one bingo. Obviously, a bingo is, like the regular bingo card.
No, big-
So they would complete it and they would turn in it at their branch. And then at the end of the summer, the YA librarian selected one of the teens to win a prize. And 16% of teen active readers also completed the bingo challenge. Megan's going to talk a little bit more about what it means to be an active reader.
So you had to sign up for the summer reading challenge to be eligible to do this as well. So that was part of this, like, there's like this cool bingo thing you could do, but you need to register for summer reading in order to participate in this. So we tried to, get them to, if they want to do a fun thing, like sign up for the reading challenge. Well, yeah, they're both fun.
Okay, and then this was just some of this. Well, this was the regional programming that happened for the teens. It's a little bit different than the regional programming for children because we have a much smaller audience and teens can be really, kind of finicky about what they want to come to in the library. So again, the idea is to take the load off a little bit from young adult staff because they're already doing extra programming. They've got more kids coming into the library. But to also give them the opportunity to tailor some programs specifically to the interests of the teens at their branch. So each branch, instead of having each program at every single branch, they have a list of presenters to choose from, and they will often work with many of the, like I said, the branches have teen advisory boards. So they'll work with their teens and they'll make recommendations or they'll give polls to the kids to hear what they are interested in having at the library. And so these were some of the outside presenters who came and many actually presented at several branches. So it still kind of fills that that idea of having it be, across the system, just maybe not at every single branch. And then new this year was the YA staff could ask for some regional funds to enhance already existing programs. Like several of the young adult librarians would have like a special party to do a teen summer kickoff that was, maybe after hours or in the evening at a different time just for teens and things like that. So that was received pretty well as well this year. And that's all I have.
Okay, so for regional children's programming, Heather mentioned it's a smaller number of
teens, but it's also a smaller budget. So I think Heather
she has in order to put on, I think it was 22 different programs for teens. So it's awesome. So the children's programming is formatted so that every single branch has the same performer across a week of programming. So, on Tuesday morning, you go to Nelson. On Tuesday afternoon, they go to Louisa. Wednesday morning, they go, et cetera, et cetera. So they hit every branch in a week. So over the course of 8 weeks, there were 62 shows, day off for 4th of July, with almost 5,500 attendees total. And we got really wonderful feedback this year. So just a couple of examples are up there. We had some new performers this year. Gary the Great was our opening act, a magician who came all the way from New York. He did a wonderful job and people are already asking for him to come back. So hopefully he will. And then we had some sort of repeat favorites. Jeff Marsh is a sort of like a Virginia native who does juggling and circus acts and everything like that. So that was our children's programming for the summer. And one of the things that we're looking for with that programming is, we get people to come into the library. And then at the beginning of the program, we say, and when you're done, you go sign up for summer reading downstairs at the children's desk or, whatever the wording is for your branch. And it works. People are already there and you rope them into the next thing. So we can go to the next slide. Before we touch on the actual numbers, I just want to mention how amazing all of our frontline staff is here during the summer with, increased traffic, lots of programming, and then interfacing with our Beanstack platform. So since there is a way to go totally analog for patrons with the Summer Reading Challenge, they can do everything on paper and don't have to touch the Beanstack app. That means staff do. So someone comes and hands their paper log in. Staff members then enter all of the data from their log so that we can track it for reporting purposes, for budgeting purposes, and for figuring out how people are participating, like what things can we do to motivate them further to participate. So just big kudos to staff for all of their hard work this summer. Okay, now into the numbers. So participation returned to pre-COVID levels last year. So this was 2019, so about 7,000 participants total. And then obviously we had a dip with COVID. We're starting to recover. And yeah, so by 2025, we were back to those numbers. We think probably for a couple of reasons. In 2024, the challenge consisted of logging books, how many books you read, but also doing some of those challenges that Heather mentioned. So there were multiple ways to sort of participate in the challenge. So it was more challenging to explain to patrons, like, how do I win a prize? How do I do this thing? And we simplified it to track just reading minutes, which is also more equitable. Somebody could be a slower reader or faster reader, but if you're reading the same number of minutes, you're earning the same number of prizes, which is nice. And then also, as Heather mentioned, we added in that registration prize element. So when you register for the challenge, you get your free tote bag to carry your books around in all summer. And with those combination of things and a lot of, PR marketing type things, that's how we ended up more than doubling our numbers from 2024 to 2025. Now you can see 2025 to 2026, we stayed just about consistent, which is kind of what we expected and hoped for. We kept the same challenge format. We thought it worked well, and a very similar prize structure. I'll talk about that a little bit more later. Before we jump into a further breakdown, we can look at sort of the age categories of the participants. So adult participation in the challenge has grown over the years. It's anecdotally in the past 2 years, we've been seeing a lot more new adults, I guess you'd call them, sort of, what would you say, 18 to
28. I would say before people start coming back to the library with their children, like
Right.
Before it would be like people, once they're age out of being teenagers, they wouldn't really come back until they had their own kids. And so now we're seeing more people who are just either, college students or whatever the
so
might be.
low adults, yeah. So that's cool. When we ask for ages, you're 19 plus when you're older than 18. So we don't know the actual numbers, which would be very interesting, but we don't ask people that. And teen participation has actually stayed relatively steady as a percentage of the total sort of age participation over time. And we're looking to see how we can grow that, maybe with that bingo challenge or some other ways. Kids participation hasn't quite made it back to our peak total number, which is in 2019, but it still makes it the largest percentage of participants every year, which is kind of to be expected. I think that's it for that one. Okay, so numbers. Oh, the colors don't look that different. The bottom 4 rows are all 2026, just broken down by age group if you're curious. The top row is from 2025. So you can see participants, around 7,000. Active readers is what we call a participant who has done something beyond register. So somebody who has logged some reading minutes. So that's about half, and that stayed consistent from year to year. And then we have a challenge completed number, which is once you've earned your 3 prizes. So you got your tote bag for registering, you got your first book prize for 500 minutes, and your second book prize for 1,000 minutes. That was an easier thing to do last year. 600 minutes was sort of the challenge completion number. So we actually raised that reading goal and had about the same number of completions, which is cool. So people will stretch to reach the goals that you set for them, which is cool. And then something that we tracked this year. So when you hit 1,000 minutes, you've sort of finished earning physical prizes. You get your 2 books. But then we had an incentive for reading more. So if you read 2,500 minutes, you got another grand prize entry. If you're up to 5,000 minutes, you get another grand prize entry. So there were these additional incentives to keep on reading and keep on logging and participating. Because one thing that we noticed in 2025 was the number of people who hit 600 minutes and then stopped was huge, because it was like the challenge was complete. They actually got a little digital badge in Beanstack that says you completed the challenge. So that's another thing that we did this year. There was no challenge completion badge in Beanstack. And so we didn't get that sort of shelf at 1,000 this year. People just kept reading and kept logging, which is great. Our main question now, I think going into next year, is how do we convert more participants, more people who register, to be active readers, to come and actually log reading and engage with the challenge further than, coming and signing up. One other cool thing to note is that the number of minutes that we read as a community in 2025 was 3.4 million, and we more than doubled that this year. So we were at about 7 million, which I think has something to do with that, like, continue reading. You don't stop when you earn your 2 physical prizes. Oh, next.
12 years, 7 million minutes.
We read for 12 years this stuff. So now we have a breakdown by branch. So your top row there is the total number of participants who registered at each branch this year and the percent change from last year. So you'll see it has fluctuated at some of the branches. Some have stayed very consistent. The next row down is the percent of participants who were active readers at that branch and by how many percentage points that changed from last year. So some branches, may have decreased their total number of participants, but also increased the percent of those people who were active readers, like Crozet. Like they went down 10% in total numbers, but they went up 5% people who were really actually engaging and participating, which is kind of cool.
But Louisa, that's.
We were speculating too. I think it was a big outreach event where they went out of the branch and, we're like, you should sign up for summer reading. Come do the thing.
2 events. So we had our summer kickoff.
Okay.
And about a week later was the Autism Festival, which is held at Moss Knuckles. And we had a table set up there. So we probably grabbed a lot of participants signups that way.
Right. So those might be people who, and that was one of those things with active readers, like, okay, we got them to sign up. They know about the library. How do we get them to come back and engage and be active readers, which I think
Visit the library.
Right. Come to the library, get your prizes, that sort of thing. So that's definitely something we're going to have a summer reading committee meeting, and we'll strategize about that because it's awesome to see those numbers go way up. And then just the number of tote bags we handed out, the number of books we handed out as prizes, which were, again, similar to last year. That's it for that, unless there's any specific questions based on location. All right, and then our next step is just assessment. So we collected those final statistics using our Beanstack platform. Put it in our spreadsheet. So we've got data going back to 2017. I think that was kind of the iteration, sort of the modern summer reading challenge, if you will. And the other thing that we do as regional managers is collect feedback on the challenge, the prize book selection. We actually have a little form. We got a lot of emails of saying like, oh, this patron was looking for romantasy and we didn't have any of that to give them. And so we've got this form to collect all of that information to try to get prize books that are more popular. And then programming feedback, of course, and we'll be deciding on programming for next year as well. So like I said, the summer reading committee is going to meet to discuss this feedback and any potential changes for next year. And we love to hear feedback both from the community, from the board, from the staff. So if anyone has something they'd like to share with us or any ideas for us, we would love to hear it.
Does Beanstack have a feedback, a section to it, so at the end of the summer, patrons can give feedback that way?
That's a good question. I don't think it has. I think you can provide feedback. So it's a company who administers this app. And you could email something, but that might go to them. So we have an email that's beanstack@jmrl.org, where we direct people if they have questions about Beanstack, but that would be a good place to direct feedback to. We could even make it part of the challenge to tell us what you think. And you can do a little bonus entry in the challenge if you share something with us. Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
So obviously the foundation of this is kind of minutes read.
Yep.
I really like the bingo because it also encourages people to explore different aspects of the library and there they could, open kids' eyes to new possibilities beyond just straight reading. I was curious if you've explored other kind of reward systems to complement the minutes reading. Like for instance, reading streak, right? Which would be like, number of days consecutively that you read, and that could end up helping them build their overall minutes for the summer. But, and there's, you can come up with a whole bunch of different incentives to sort of gamify it. And I'm just curious if you guys have thought about that.
That is actually something that Beanstack, like the app does itself. It will track your reading streak, which is really nice. So that is one perk to using the app as opposed to the paper. We've had so many conversations about the perks of being digital versus the physical. It's great for handwriting practice. With the math ones, it's practicing your math skills to add up the total number of minutes at we kind of see both sides of it. But yeah, Beanstack tracks reading streak. You can also scan with your phone the ISBN of your book, and it will automatically log the title and author for you, which is really nice. So even though we're not tracking by book, you can scan that and be like, I spent 20 minutes on this book today and then 60 minutes the next day. So there's a lot of features that we could potentially explore for other summer reading or other reading challenges.
We also briefly discussed this. It is logistically a very big change, but potentially instead of having one big grand prize per age group, having smaller grand prizes. Now, we don't love the idea of extrinsic motivation, but it is a way to get people in the library and get them participating. If we had smaller, like weekly prizes or, whether it's a little gift card or something that people can come into the library for, and it's another way to engage with them. So,
and provides more winners and more, sort of builds that excitement of like, oh, I could win again this week.
Yeah.
To have a library card to sign up?
We do not. No. We want to
More
keep it
to
low
check
barrier.
programs. Yeah. Yeah. You just need a library card to check out items, but you can attend programs, you can participate in the challenge. Yeah.
It's great for people who are here only during the summer. There's a lot of kids who visit their grandparents and the grandparents watching the kids all summer long, and the kids can still participate, which is really nice.
Work. That was a lot of good.
All right, moving along to a policy committee report. Mike?
At the last board meeting last month, we had the presentation about notary services, and that fed into our theme or topic of our policy meeting today, where we're reviewing JMRL's current notary services policy, rolling in the feedback and the discussion from the board meeting. And today was a lot of kind of conceptual, diving in a little further, very similar in nature to last month's board meeting, so you didn't miss a lot. We came away, I think we made some good progress with sort of identifying some bullet point type concepts that we wanted to see in a final draft that we'll be presenting. So hopefully we'll have that. We'll be looking at language in our next meeting 2 months from now. Hopefully by the end of that, we'll have something to bring to the board. Yeah, it's either gonna be 2 months from now or 4 months.
4 months.
Yeah. I think,
Well, I have a may have.
yeah. And that's all we did.
Okay. Next will be the report from regarding the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation Advisory Committee, which we met online, and David's going to share about that.
It's in your handouts, the information that was shared with the advisory committee. So this is just to apprise the board of the state of the funds here, and then also to talk about what decisions the advisory committee made for funding for fiscal year 27. So to remind the board, this is the Friends of the Library, and they have a series of endowment funds that are held at the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation. So the full name is the Friends of the Library Family of Funds at the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation. But these have grown steadily over the years. They are very specifically not meant to replace any operational costs. So it's written into the language agreements there that they're not to be used to pay for things that our jurisdictional partners are obligated to pay for, like salary, things like that. The main focus about 10 years ago, when we created a bunch of funds for each branch, was to have this also be the fundraising mechanism for new capital expenses. And we use that to great impact in Nelson County when we raised funding to support the renovated building in 2020, 2021. The money came through the fund here. So this is kind of the current state of them. There are 4 general funds that existed before those branch funds happened. The Art and Jane Hess Fund is the biggest catch-all, like original endowment fund there. The Celia Martin Fund is unrestricted. Naranci Bequest is restricted to Charlottesville and just to Charlottesville, so it has to be central to Gordon Avenue. And the Rachel Poole Fund is restricted to educational purposes. Okay, so there's a current balance for each one, and then the spendable balance. And then going through, here's what each branch has. The oldest of these funds is actually the Greene County Library Fund, which it predates all the rest of the branch funds. When the branch was renovated about 25 years ago, the fundraisers there at the end of the fundraising project made a gift to a Greene County Library Fund to create the FMC. Why it's a bit bigger. Same for Nelson. Nelson's has a healthier fund because of that fundraising project. We are clear to state that the current spendable balance is 4.5% of the rolling average daily balance across the prior 3 calendar years, which was a question that the advisory committee had in 2025. So that's why you see the bookmobiles balance saying $0. It's they had no dollars that met that because the entirety of that amount there was added within the past year as one single gift. I worked with a donor on that. Okay, having said that, there's a plan to spend some of that bookmobile money where it says there's a $0 spendable balance. So the actual, the language that's in these funds with the CACF states that the advisory committee can request distributions in excess. They basically just have to provide a reason for that. And one of those reasons is to acquire a capital asset, such as a bookmobile. So last year when I showed you this list, it was a whole bunch of like, we're going to do this project, this project, this project, this project. As this board is aware, we've had severe issues with our current bookmobile. And so the advisory committee working with the Friends of the Library are instead focusing assets for this year into buying a new bookmobile. The Friends of the Library's board is going to give $100,000 to that bookmobile fund. And the advisory committee voted to add an extra $125,000 from other existing funds to that to purchase a bookmobile now, effectively. So when I say now, that means a bookmobile will be here between 6 months and 2 years from now. The other amount there is the $25,000 that was part of this board's discussions on how to replace funding in the equipment fund with the loss of fine revenue. If you remember, there was a 3-year plan. Year 1 of that, you all already voted to take $50,000, excuse me, from the general fund balance of JMRL and move it into the equipment fund. $25,000 is coming from state aid to go into the equipment fund. The final $25,000 is coming from the CACF funds to go into the equipment fund. Okay, it's important to note though that, excuse me, a few years ago, we opened up requests to the advisory committee to managers at JMRL, and they go through a process every spring where they ask for special projects or special equipment that wouldn't necessarily be something they would ask for anyway. And that comes through me and then to the advisory committee. We believe that there's funding there in the current equipment fund balance and in leftover funding from the last 2 years of CACF fundings to account for all of that. So we're not saying no to any of the projects that got requested this spring. It's just this big gift is dedicated to the book.
In the past, CACF funding has paid for like the summer internship.
Yes. Same. So we have funding left. Yes. It's not listed here. That was a request that I made to pay for the summer scholarship program and staff scholarships as well. And the other big one that happens annually is the Same Page event. So there's enough funding left over from the last few years from the CACF that didn't get spent to cover those. Or we'll have to absorb it operationally. That's the point I'm trying to make, Orly, yeah.
So to add to this, since you're mentioning bookmobile, this next month, the Greene County Bookmobile Services will be starting, providing the wheels of the bus are turning around.
All through the town.
We've done a ride through and looked at several different places and have gotten permission to go to those particular places. And I'm looking forward to that. I think there are 2 stops per week for the 4 weeks.
Any other comments or questions?
Question. So the Friends of the Library donation of 100,000, where does that show up on, where's the source of that show up on these handouts?
It does not. That comes from the Friends of the Library's funding, which is not reflected here.
So that's a separate fund, and what's its approximate balance?
There is no fund at the CXF. This is the nonprofit 501c3 Friends of the Library.
Right, but they have a bank account somewhere. They have an.
Yeah, I'd have to.
10,000 is coming, like, there's a starting balance and minus 100,000, and then what's the ending balance?
I'd have to ask the Friends to report on that. We
Okay.
can do that.
Do they themselves have a target like we do of this 4.5%? Or is it more of a long-term, do what they want type of?
Their general rule of thumb is to keep 2 years of operating expenses for the Friends of the Library in their bank, basically.
Mhm.
So at this point, the Friends Board, when they met in June, decided that they could afford $100,000 gift to support a bookmobile without undercutting their 2 years of expenses.
Yeah, okay. What kind of expenses do they have?
They have 2 employees.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's a full-on nonprofit organization. Like, we could have them come and do a separate CE at some point.
That might be interesting, actually.
Sure. We have 2
Okay.
former presidents of the
Yeah,
board
right.
here.
Yeah,
right
they
now,
can maybe-
talk to.
An impromptu one.
Get on up there.
All right, I mean, I'll just reiterate, I appreciate I feel that the organization is very fortunate to have these sources of external funding. I love to see them spent sooner than later on things that the library can do. And so I like to see, what we've seen last year and other years. Here's the list of manager priorities that we've identified and come up with, and now we're going to be able to use these funds in a concrete way for things that managers have identified that we need. I appreciate that that's somehow being able to still happen this year, even though it's not on this page. It's basically we're able to do that with carryover funds. I do feel like this spike need for the bookmobile has crowded out in some way that regular process. Although you're telling me it's going to be able to happen. And so I would just reiterate, from my perspective, it would be nice to see if we can smooth out this spike so that we don't have a year where we feel like things are getting crowded out or we're having to do something different from usual. I wonder if there's a way to make regular contributions from various other funds into the bookmobile fund so that it can maybe somehow, when we have the spike, that would be coming from the bookmobile fund in a way that the other normal process of this 160K, 4.5 target would be happening normal. I'm being very vague and hand wavy here, but the concept I think makes sense to try and smooth this out so we can keep doing the same thing every year with these projects. And the part that's new to me is, there is a bookmobile fund, which sounds like itself is kind of new, and I wonder if that can be used as a vehicle to help smooth out the spike.
It could.
Yeah.
And the other spike, which this board and the Friends Board and the advisory committee should be expecting, is the renovation of the central library.
Yeah, absolutely. To me, that's completely outside of this rate,
But it
4.5.
it might take a huge chunk
Yeah.
out of what is currently gaining, it's making a lot of money just by.
Yeah, the
being there.
interest. Yeah, no doubt. That'll take the balance down, but that's what it's for. That's
why
a
it's
big
there.
point of what it's for, and it's a super important priority. So
Exactly.
I understand that trade-off.
But it was a shock that this one didn't last as long, or is
Yeah, but to Mike's point, it's now coming up on 10 years old, so
Okay, so we
it's not
should,
that much of a shock.
So maybe we should be thinking that we need another one sooner than
10 years, but even if it's 8 years from now, seeding some funding
Yeah.
every year.
Part of the problem was when we went to buy this one, okay, it took way too long to get it.
Yeah.
It took at least 2 years, I think.
Not when everyone was buying Sprinter vans.
That was
Working remotely.
Nelson. That was Nelson's.
Okay.
That was worse.
That was far
That
worse.
was the worst, yeah.
Well, you're also talking about putting out even more miles on it. It's going around Green County.
Yeah, my hope is, so Camille and I are just starting the procurement process here, but the big part of the problem is not the actual mileage, it's the idling miles. Because at every stop that it goes to, it idles and runs systems so that there's air conditioning and power and light and the ADA compliant lift works. So the mileage on it isn't as bad as you would expect for a 10-year-old vehicle. It's the idle miles, which are like 250,000 miles. So one of our hopes is that the technology has improved quite a bit in the last 10 years so that you can kind of separate those systems and have a separate generator or perhaps some innovative ways to power the systems that are inside the hopefully the vehicle's been great. Not disparaging the maker, the model, anything like that, but it is a not domestic vehicle, and parts for it is a big problem now when something dies. Whereas if it was something that's readily in stock for any other transit van, we can get it easily. Now sometimes it takes 6 weeks to get. There's always going to be some amount of wear and tear, and it's going to be off the road for periods, but it's off the road for longer periods because of the current vehicle.
Mike, didn't you mention some other large expense like the bookmobile and talking about trying to reserve funds for it? Was it another van or is
My recollection is that conversation what was it?
It's probably a delivery truck.
Yeah.
So JMRL doesn't, the only capital assets we own are these vehicles. This board doesn't own this building or any other building, it's just the vehicles. We're talking about trying to amortize somehow that. It's the bookmobile, it's a van, and 2 delivery trucks currently.
Yeah.
But the problem is we can't amortize it in the regular budget because
Because you can't carry money over.
of the retention. But it seems to me that if we could amortize it with essentially, especially since we're getting funded externally anyways, we could amortize it within this external structure. Maybe that's a way to.
Yeah, and in some ways it's 6 of one, half a dozen the other. The funding here is coming from that Art and Jane Hess fund, because we could have seeded it every year for 10 years, or we're just taking it all at once out of that fund.
But by taking it out at once, it seems to me we're sort of impacting the process for the other regular.
Yeah, I think even if we'd had 6 months more lead time on this, it would have been a different situation. But I take your point. It's a good point.
Moving on to old business.
Do we have to accept them?
There's a separate coming up in,
No, seriously, that's a
there is a
separate
vote,
thing.
yeah. They're just not next to each other on the agenda.
Moving on to old business, the Central Library renovation update.
Okay, just a brief update here that thanks to Ann Hemingway from this board and Jane Kulo from the Friends of the Library Board, we're working on the core of a fundraising committee. So we've met a few times to talk about what that's going to look like, either this fall or into early next year. And the entire team that is going to be doing the procurement decision-making was part of that MOA that came out between Charlottesville and Albemarle. There are going to be 2 members from Charlottesville, 2 members from Albemarle, and myself will make up the 5-person team that will decide who the A&E vendor is. So who's going to do the architecture and engineering. Charlottesville's already started work on that RFP, but there have been some delays in getting these 5 together. It's going to be from the city of Charlottesville, Leslie Burns and Scott Hendricks. And Scott is very familiar with the building. They're both in facilities development in the city. From Albemarle County, it's Walter Harris and Audrey Storm. And I just wanted to briefly show the Crozet Library. She was a volunteer, yes, fundraiser for the Crozet Library in a former position that she had. And we had one of the takeaways is that we had Dylan Padilla start working on information that we will initially share just inside the central library to alert folks that might not know that this project is on the, we've been talking about this for a long time, so everybody here is well aware of what the time frame is, but most of the patrons walking in and out of the central library aren't aware of what's going to happen there. So he did a nice job of sharing a document that we're going to put on a poster board size on the in the entryway there, showing like here's the original library, built in 1906. Here's the original central building. Here's the original library in 1921. Here's when a third was added to the central building. The portico was up and moved, and then here's 1981. The library moved in, and then here's kind of, we're talking about this now. The design and community engagement is happening this year into next year, and then construction those 2 years. A new building opens then with a little soft launch fundraising here that just points to the central library fund at the CACF, so that people regularly make small donations to that now, and this would just be a way to do that, and then a specific feedback form just for this project. So this is just going to be a very soft launch while we work out some details about how the fundraising is going to go. I wanted to share it there because I thought it looked nice.
And that does look great. And when do you start handing that to the public?
I think we'll put that out sometime in the next few weeks.
Ready to go?
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty much ready to go. We're meeting next week to talk about some details. We've already started talking to other potential members of that committee. So I have the update.
Moving back to the Friends Family of Funds, we've got a grant acceptance.
Okay, Krista is frantically texting me. You forgot to get this motion. But it is here in your handouts. Number 1 in your hearts and number 7 on the list.
I move the JMRL accept the Friends Family of Funds at the Charlottesville Area Community Foundation's granted allocation of $250,000 and authorize the expenditure of that funding for the purchase of a new bookmobile and library equipment.
Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
That's good. We are moving on to your reports.
Okay, a few things to report. One thing that you might have seen in either coming through the Virginia Library Association, which you all get emails from, you get a lot of emails from, so you may or may not have seen it, is that the FCC is making some noise about the E-rates funding program, which pays for a portion of schools and libraries' telco connectivity. So it pays for the connection to the internet and some networking. You can get networking hardware. It's generally for us around an 80% the feds pay, 20% JMRL pays. They're looking at this program now, and there are some concerns that it might be on a chopping block. So I am going to send some information to the board that the ALA has put together. Right now, the FCC is taking comment, which they do whenever they make a decision, and anybody can go in and make a comment. So just general comments about, supporting this program for public libraries is great coming from anybody. Okay, you can see everybody else's comments that are in there too, and it's half of America. Well, it's probably not half. If this funding was eliminated, Virginia schools and libraries will have to find a way to make up $256 million a year. That's how much they received. Actually, that's a total of 21 through 25, so it's like a 5-year period. And JMRL relies heavily on this funding, but even for other library systems that aren't participating in E-rate, they still are in a jurisdiction where their schools probably are. And if the schools lose that funding, they're going to be competing for local dollars to make up that funding, which potentially could impact library funding. So it is potentially a big problem for localities, for small communities. And I've talked to some of our jurisdictions about this too, and told them this is the chance for them to also make comment here, so that any costs that right now the federal government is paying aren't going to end up having to be pushed down to local government. So as an example, last year, JMRL replaced the networking switches at all branches, and the federal E-rate program paid for $125,000. and JMRL paid the remaining $31,000. So it's a substantial amount of funding that we're getting from the federal government. Okay, American Library Association has been fairly vocal. I'll send something around to the board with information about how to connect there. Martha scooped my next info, which was about the bookmobile starting on September 3rd in Greene County. They're working on a lovely trifold new bookmobile schedule now. Currently, the handout schedule that we give to people is on the back of the overall schedule for JMRL that gets handed out when you make a new card. But now there are too many stops to fit back there. So it's a nice little trifold pamphlet that has all the stops. And thank you, Martha, for taking the time. A few weeks ago, we drove around and looked at all the stops and came up with a pretty good route, ran it by Greene County and worked on some suggestions that they had. But it's good to go, and the bookmobile team did a great job getting that ready.
Who does it? Like what sort of places?
Largely, it's going to go up from here, go up 29 and stop in Ruckersville. Around there, there's a social services department there. There's a community center. So similar to the model that we're using in Louisa, where we're trying to get out to places where people can't get to the library, but the most use is where the people are. So it's in Zion's Crossroads. Like we're anticipating that the Ruckersville area is going to have the most use here. And then it goes out west and stops in Dyke at Maybell's Market there, which is a small community on the way up towards the Shenandoah National Park. We're not going to go up the mountain. Got enough problems.
Not going in Bacon Hollow.
Yeah, not up to Bacon Hollow. And then loops back around and comes back down. So it's going to stop at, I think, at the Walmart that's right there on 33 and 29. And then again, where that Food Lion is, right? And then at the Arbors, which is a assisted living facility. It's relatively new, right on 29 there on the way up. So a lot of traffic up and down the corridor there. I meant to bring that up to show you, but I'll email it out to the board so you all can see specifically what days and where it's going.
David,
Yes.
I'm sorry to take you back one thing.
Please.
When you sent out an email with the link about the E-rate, can you just include like a couple of your talking points if we want to make comments?
Sure.
As well, be helpful.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thank you. Okay, so just as a reminder that we're already in budget season. It's about to get busier, budgetier. So the first milestone coming up that's on your board and budget schedule is on the 11th of September. It doesn't require any action on your end, but department and branch managers will be submitting their personnel and operational, their non-equipment budget requests for next year. That means that there'll have to be a personnel committee meeting at some point after that. I will organize them for the personnel committee, send them out to the personnel committee, and then we'll have a meeting where that group will prioritize those for the budget committee. Staff compensation committee has been meeting regularly to prepare for that as well. I'm hoping to have a recommendation for overall changes for staff comp ahead of this, so that can be something that the personnel committee can discuss as well. I've mentioned this a few times, but I don't know how officially I have, that JMRL has recently started a procedures working group. It started earlier this year. It runs parallel to the policy committee. So when there's a month that there is no policy committee meeting, the staff only group is meeting. The effort is kind of similar to the employee handbook effort 5 or 6 years ago. It's a top to bottom review of all staff procedures associated with board policies. So for example, the policy committee was talking about notaries today. We have a notary policy. We don't have a notary procedure. So that'll be identified and something written up as part of this process. It might be a multi-year job, but this is long overdue, and I'm glad to see it started. When we have things to present, I'll ask them to come and present them to the board just to show you what kind of changes are being made. Finally, I'm happy to report that the column and the roofing outside the Nelson Memorial Library has been fixed. Alita, if you haven't been by in a few weeks.
I was there.
Yeah. So special thanks to Nelson County for doggedly pursuing this. It took a long time to get that sorted out. And when I was down there the other day, they also have up the Virginia Museum of History and Culture's traveling BA 250 exhibit, Give Me Liberty, Virginia and the Forging of a Nation. It was at Northside, so the board might have seen it when it was here, but now it's up at Nelson Memorial until the end of September. JMRL developed some accompanying bibliographies for the exhibit as well, which should be available at Nelson. I made that note to share with you all. And then I came in and Xavier was putting up another exhibit that the Virginia Museum of History and Culture has like a traveling roadshow around the state for the VA 250 where libraries can get these things up. So by the time we're done today, there might be one here as well. Might be easier for you to get to than the Nelson Report. That is all I have to report.
Thank you, David. Is there any other matters?
I'll make my semi-decadal comment. A reminder that we operate according to our governing documents under Robert's Rule of Order for small organizations. And the salient point is there are no seconds offered by those organizations. I know that people want to do seconds sometimes because it's a way to kind of show support or, hey, let's move to a vote or whatever. But my recommendation is that we just do it the same way every time so that in case there's ever a time when it matters, there was consistency.
Noted. Future agenda items.
The tech committee's meeting on Thursday this week, so there'll be a report from the technology committee.
I would recommend continuing ed on the Friends,
Okay.
because from just talking to Jane, they've done a lot of,
Yeah, there's a lot going on. They've got a rebrand happening
Right.
too. Yeah.
so whenever that gets finalized, maybe.
I had on the list for next month a continuing ed on the redundancy and security of JMRL's IT and digital services, which was something that came out earlier this summer from the board. So I think that would come first, and then
Maybe they'll complete their branding.
yeah, it looks good. I've got some drafts of it. So it's unlikely there'll be a personnel committee, but it's not impossible. That could happen.
I'll be in a room.
Okay, never mind. That's
In there.
and then
Calling from the beach.
from your annual board schedule, the library board sets budget objectives and guidelines in September. You know, just kind of like telling staff, like, here are the major priorities. So in the past, I've come with some suggestions for you all. I'm happy to do that. And if you have things that you want to be included, I'll add them to a draft for the board to review. Seems like enough.
All right. The next month's meeting will be back here at Northside. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
See you next month.
Thank you all.
He was out of time.